In the 1990s, media looked at crack dealing as one of the most profitable jobs in America. If this was true, why are most drug dealers not only still living in the projects but with their moms? The answer lies hidden within the dealers themselves. A man named Sudhir Venkatesh, Sid for short, began to earn his Ph.D. in sociology at the University of Chicago in 1989. His academic advisor gave him a survey, and he was directed to bring it to the projects and question the unfortunate people that were living there. Following these instructions led him to a dangerous gang in a run-down building. One member grabbed his survey, but he couldn't even read it. These dealers were uneducated, violent, poor, and unsanitary, the exact opposite of what the media captured them as. The gang sold their drugs out of this building, so they kept Sid there all night, seeing as they didn't know if he was a spy or part of another gang. Throughout the night, they eased up on him as they discovered he wasn't a threat. They shared their beers with him, he met the leader of the gang, JT, and they allowed him slight freedom. 24 hours later, the gang let him go, just for him to walk back only 2 hours later due to pure curiosity. How do the Black Disciples, or Chicago gangs, work from top to bottom, is the question he asked himself. Determined to get his answer, he tracked down JT and embedded himself with the gang. Sid lived with the gang for about 6 years, studying the members' lives at work and at home. These people did everything they could to take care of their families, no matter how dangerous and life-threatening. Booty, a member of the gang just a rank below JT, was blamed by the other dealers for indictment, which led to his death. Before his murder, he gave Sid a stack of spiritual notebooks with a complete record of every transaction the gang ever made. Later on, Sid met Stephen Levitt, an economist focused mainly on crime. Their common interest led them to discussing these notebooks and collaborating on a paper about this subject. Going by the information in the notebooks and the knowledge Sid picked up from the gang, he got to the bottom of all their questions. They found that the gang from Chicago was one of about 100 branches that all reported to a central leadership, or the board of directors. Since JT was the leader of his gang, he gave the directors about 20% of his revenues, and the rest he was to distribute to his workers as he saw fit. JT was paid the most, and then the 3 officers who reported directly to him were financially right below him. After the officers were the salesmen, also called foot soldiers, and there were always around 25 to 75 working for JT. At the very bottom of the organization were about 200 people known as the rank and file, and these weren't employees nor did they get paid, but they did pay dues to the gang if JT allowed them to sell their drugs, therefore just earning the gang more money. Going by the notebooks, the gang brought in an average of $32,000 a month. It also showed an average of $14,000 of excluding wages JT had to pay every month. JT's monthly average paycheck was about $8,500 with an annual salary of $100,000. This proves that some drug dealers are able to live large, especially the people in the board of directors who can earn about $500,000 a year. The top 120 men on the pyramid are paid well, but the rest are not. The monthly average for all 3 officers is about $2,100 and $7,400 for all 25 to 75 foot soldiers. This equals out to about $7 an hour for officers and $3.50 an hour for foot soldiers. Because of this, gangs showed great similarities to big businesses like McDonald's. They each have a board of directors and a boss. In the gang's case, that would be JT. And at the bottom would be officers, suppliers, foot soldiers, burger flippers, and the rank and file and the customer. Although foot soldiers and burger flippers are both at that level, unlike burger flippers, the work conditions of a foot soldier indicates that they have the most dangerous, least paying job in America. So who would want to do that for a living? Because of the difficult circumstances a kid growing up in the projects has to deal with, they don't realize this or think of it as a problem. Crack dealing sounds like a successful, glamorous profession to them, but only if someday they earn the spot as a gang leader, because they get paid the most money. The boss can easily pay the minimum wage workers more, but why don't they? If the boss gave the lower class workers more of their money, it would make them look weak, since these people are striving for their job. The bosses give as much as they can to take care of their workers while still keeping their power. In a way, this is fair because just like every other business, in order to get to the top, you must start at the bottom. However, becoming the boss out of the large amount of people competing for the same position is about as likely as a small-town girl making it as a big actress in Hollywood. Nevertheless, if the ultimate position is worth it, the workers will fight for it. Competing for the Top Gun requires you to work long and hard, not making much money, while proving yourself to be substantially above average. Most quit before advancing to the top after apprehending to themselves that they will never make it, but the few that hang on progress to the higher position. In conclusion, the average drug dealer is underpaid, uneducated, still living in their mom's house, and puts himself in great danger. Due to the place the dealers grew up, their business consuming the financial structure of an enterprise, and the enormous amount of people willing to do this job, it is hard to beat these odds. With the help of Sudhir Venkatesh fearlessly pulling the truth right from the center of a Chicago gang, the media no longer thinks of this as a millionaire profession. Most foot soldiers don't make enough money to support themselves and their family, never mind having extra cash. They can't make a lot of money because of their lack of skills and education. These are crucial to have in the world of business because of the strategies you use are what are going to push you to a higher level. JT is the perfect example of this. Although he was part of a criminal gang, he was a tall, good-looking, smart, tough, college-educated man who knew how to motivate people. With his degree, he had exceptional knowledge in business, which is why he knew to keep the notebook with his gang's transactions in it. This is something no other boss thought of, which is why it paid off for JT in the end, earning him a spot on the well-paid board of directors.